Chapter 7. The Land's End reminds me of that scene in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, where Harry arrives at the Order's headquarters, which is actually Sirius Black's house, but it's hidden by a spell. One of the wizards taps on the stones out front, and the buildings slide apart to reveal the headquarters sandwiched between them. The Land's End is like that. It's a grey building tucked between two other grey buildings. Together they sit like books on a shelf, their stone spines running along without any gaps between, their rooftops dotted by chimneys. When we ring the bell on the bright red door, an older woman answers. She has rosy cheeks and fair skin, and a fat white cat twining between her ankles. "Oh, hello," says the woman. "You must be the Blakes. I'm Mrs. Weathershire. I run the Land's End. Come in." The foyer walls are covered in old-fashioned portraits, faces that stare off into space. An arched doorway on the right leads into a sitting room, and at the end of the hall a steep wooden staircase rises up like a tree. As Mrs. Weathershire rattles off details about our stay, I wander towards the stairs. Jacob falls into step beside me. "I bet it's haunted." He thinks everything is haunted. With the Lane's End, it's hard to tell. It's old, sure, but old doesn't always mean a pipe rattles in the walls and footsteps sound overhead. Jacob raises his eyebrows. Well, maybe. At the base of the stairs, I let my eyes trail up to the landing, only to find a girl staring down at me. She's about my age, dressed in a crisp white button-down and a pleated skirt. She has light brown skin, a glossy black hair pulled back into a neat braid. She stares at me, unblinking, and I stare back, because there's something strange about her. Familiar, but I can't shake the feeling I've seen her before, even though I know I haven't. "Cassidy," calls Dad. I tear my gaze away and backtrack, passing Grimm's crate. Mrs. Weathershire's fluffy white cat is sticking a curious paw through the bars. Grimm shoots me a look that is half pleading, half murder, and I scoop up the crate and take it with me into the sitting room. The ceiling is high, the walls lined with books, and there's a fireplace flanked by a pair of couches and capped by a chair. The layout reminds me of the 3 seats in the cab driver's story, but there's no gentleman ghost, just Mum and Dad and Mrs. Weathershire. I set down Grimm's cage and sink into one of the sofas, then yelp when I keep sinking, the cushion folding around me like quicksand. Mum offers me her hand and hauls me out as Mrs. Weathershire sets a teapot and a tray on the table. My stomach rumbles. No matter how much food you eat on a plane, you never feel satisfied. "Biscuits," Mrs. Weathershire offers, passing me a plate of what are definitely cookies. She can call them whatever she wants, so as long as I can help myself. I'm just reaching for the plate when the footsteps sound again overhead. This time we all look up. "Oh, don't mind that," says Mrs. Weathershire. "It's probably just my husband." "Will we be meeting him?" asks Dad. Our host gives a small laugh. "I shouldn't think so. Mr. Weathershire's been dead for 9 on 8 years. Her smile never even wavers. "Tea?" Jacob gives me a long look, and I don't need to be able to read his mind to know what he's thinking. Definitely haunted. He may be right, but I'm not about to find out. I have a rule about crossing the veil in places where I have to sleep. I just don't do it. Sometimes it really is better not to know. "Now," says Mrs. Weathershire, pouring tea, "what brings you out to this fair city?" As a matter of fact," says Mum, "we're filming a show about ghosts." "Oh," says our host, taking her cup. "Well, you won't have to look far. My Reginald was quite fond of Edinburgh's dead. Bit of an obsession, really." She nods at the bookshelves that line the sitting room wall. Went around collecting stories from locals for years, kept them in those logs over there. Mum perks up at the mention of stories, while Dad brightens at the mention of something with a written record. Really? Dad says, already halfway to his feet. May I? Oh, help yourself. When Dad collected a stack of journals and Mum's finished her tea, and I've eaten enough cookies to feel vaguely sick, Mrs. Weathershire rises from her seat. Well then, she says, I'll show you to your flat. A flat is apparently the British word for an apartment, even though there's nothing flat about 3 flights of stairs we have to climb to get there. When we reach the first landing, there's no sign of the black-haired girl, or anyone else. Mum informs me that in Scotland an elevator is called a lift, which would actually make sense if the building had one. Mum also explains that the lane's end is a lodging house, which is apparently like a small hotel full of flats, instead of regular hotel rooms. There are 2 flats per floor, and when we reach the 3rd landing, Mrs. Weathershire finally stops before a door with a brass 3B and produces an old-fashioned key. Here we are. The door groans open with a noise like a scary movie sound effect, but the space beyond is cosy and clean. There are 2 bedrooms and a living room with an old hearth fire, a sofa that looks less likely to eat me, and a writing desk beneath a large window. Mum and Dad linger on the landing, chatting with Mrs. Weathershire. If you need anything, she's saying, I'm just down on the 1st floor. Meanwhile, I free Grim out of his travel crate. He darts under the sofa, and I wander over by the window above the desk. The glass is fogged up, but when I run my hand across the cool surface, I'm startled to find the castle waiting on the other side. It looms over a landscape of peaked rooftops and stone chimneys, and I'm struck all over again by the view, more fairy tale than ghost story. Jacob, I say softly, you've really got to see this. But Jacob doesn't answer. I turn around, he's not there. I check the bathroom and find a clawfoot tub. It literally has a monstrous talons for feet, like a bottom half of a gargoyle that's been hollowed out. But no Jacob. Jacob, I hiss, checking the 1st bedroom. Nothing. So I enter the 2nd one and find him standing at the foot of the bed, his eyes trained on something hidden behind the door. Jacob! He doesn't blink, he doesn't move. As I slip behind him into the room, I see what he's staring at. It's a mirror. A large mirror in a gilt frame propping against the wall. At first, I think he's seen something strange in reflection, but then I realise it's the reflection itself that's snagged his attention. I follow his gaze and go still, the hair on my arm standing on end. There are 2 Jacobs, one beside me and the one in the mirror, but they're not the same. The Jacob beside me is the one I know, but the one in the mirror is greyed out and gaunt. His shirt and jeans are soaked, river water pooling at his feet. I'm not easily spooked these days, but seeing him like that, it scares me. The Jacob in the mirror looks dead. Oh, I stop. I don't like to let myself think of the word. Jacob, I say, but my voice doesn't seem to register. His eyes are focused and empty at the same time, and I reach out to shake his shoulders, but of course my hands go straight through him. In the end, I have to stop and step between him and his reflection, breaking his line of sight. Jacob! He blinks, taking a small shuffling step back. What was that? I ask. His words are slow, sluggish. I don't know. He shivers as if he's cold, and he turns away, drifting out of the room without another word. I turn back to the mirror, half expecting to see the other Jacob still standing there, but it's just me. I head into the living room where Dad is charging his phone and Mum is unpacking. Jacob is perched on the sofa, his gaze is still strange and distant. Are you okay? think, collapsing into the couch beside him. He nods absently. Outside, the sun vanishes behind the clouds and the room suddenly darkens. It's like stepping through the veil. Everything goes grey, ominous. Mum puts her hand on her hips and looks around. "This is delightful," she says. Without even a hint of sarcasm, she turns to me. "Any sign of our resident ghost?" I assume she means Mr. Weathershire and not Jacob, so I shake my head. "Probably just a large cat and some old pipes," says Dad. Mum winds her hair into a messy bun. "You're no fun," she says, kissing his cheek. "You're twice as much," he retorts, cleaning his glasses. A stifle, a yawn. A second later, Dad yawns too. "Don't you dare," chirps Mum. "We have to stay awake. It's the only way to fight jet lag." Jet lag is apparently what happens when you fly overseas at night and your body hasn't had time to catch up with the clocks. I curl up inside against the couch while Dad calls the producers to let them know we've arrived. The crew is flying in tomorrow from London and they'll come to meet us, as will our local guide. Dad wanders into the bedroom talking logistics, but I suspect he really just wants to take a nap. I yawn again and I close my eyes, but Mum grabs my shoulder. "Come on," she says, dragging me to my feet. "It's such a nice day." I glance out of the window. It looks like rain, but Mum's not having it. She tosses a raincoat into my arms. "Good thing we came prepared." I glance back at the couch, but Jacob is gone, and before I can go looking for him, Mum hooks her arm through mine, hauling me towards the door. I only manage to get free long enough to grab my camera. As we step out into the grey day, a fine mist fills the street, turning people to shadows. Gulls screech by. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell rings. So this is Scotland, I think. How haunted can it be?